Welcome to another show of Celebrate Life. My name is Gary Carolis, and I'm your host. Before we begin the show today, I want to make an announcement that's very important to CCTV. On Friday, July 25th at 6 p.m. to Saturday, July 26th at 6 p.m. for 24 hours, there'll be a telethon to raise funds to save the archives of CCTV. If you've been following this station over the years, you know that they have covered just about every public meeting possible. And some of the footage that they have archived is treasures of Burlington and Chittenden County and Vermont history. So the telethon is to raise money, and the goal is $10,000. You can make checks out to CCTV, and hope you'll tune in. We have a special show during this 24 hours at 8 o'clock on the 26th, and my guest will be my wife, Barbara Benton. Should be a fun show, and she's led an amazing life, but I'm prejudiced. So for those of you that are new to this program, it was born out of the idea that we should celebrate people's lives while they're very much alive, rather than wait for those obituaries that many times I would read them and say, geez, I wish I got to meet that person when they were still alive. And so this program is our response to that. If you'd like to be a guest on this show, please email me at celebratelife0747@gmail.com, or if you know someone who you think would be a great guest. And by the way, everyone has a story to tell. There's no one that really I wouldn't want as a guest on this show. So we're open to every and all. And again, celebratelife0747@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to get in touch with them. Now I'd like to introduce you to a special guest today, Bob Purvis. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
Good to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
So we're here to celebrate your life, and I know that it's an incredible life. And where would you like to begin? Where did it begin?
Well, okay. Well, I guess it began at the beginning. I grew up in a small steel town in western Pennsylvania, one of 5 kids, exactly in the middle. Oldest brother, 5 years older, younger brother, 5 years younger, brother a year and a half older, sister a year and a half younger.
My goodness.
So I don't know what that sort of birth order neurosis is, but for me, it kind of, I struggled to get my place in things, and so I became the comic, the comedian, and the guy who got in trouble.
Okay.
So that was my way, but it was a nice place to grow up in then. It was when the steel mill, it was Armco and other companies in town were at their best, and we had a wonderful high school. It was a joint high school. We had like 3,600 students in grades 10 through 12.
Wow.
And
what was the name of the school, Bob?
Butler's High School. Yeah, okay. Butler's, the Golden Tornadoes.
The Golden Tornadoes.
Yeah. But for me, this story is going to fairly soon get into my struggle with alcohol use disorder, which really began when I was a kid, when I started stealing booze from my father, who was alcoholic. So
okay.
You know how that goes.
Yes,
but
right.
It was a terrific family. I mean, my father was a doctor, and my mother was really smart, and she was involved in things all over the place, and so I had I'd say it's an upper middle class background, and I was privileged. And growing up, I never wanted for anything. I wasn't spoiled, but things that mattered that was always there for me. Yep. And looking back, I appreciate how lucky I was in that respect. But a formative thing for me was when I was 12, and a friend of mine suggested I go to the Y and try out for the Y swimming team. And so I did. And the first time I swam a race, I won.
My goodness.
And that created a feeling in me that I never had before. I felt okay, because I always had this self-esteem issue. But when I won, I was okay, temporarily.
Right, right.
Until the next race.
Right.
But that became kind of my obsession. And I followed through high school, and and into my freshman year of college. Didn't last though, because once I smoked pot, that was it.
Okay.
But
The swimming.
but it was really I organized my life around it for years, and that lack of feeling okay
Yeah.
led me to be hyper competitive,
Yeah.
and which was not healthy.
Right.
I learned that much later,
Yeah.
but so I had to be the president of student council. I had to do all this stuff, and
You were filling a hole there, it seems like.
I was trying to, but it was
yes.
never filling up.
Yeah, right. It would drain as quick as, yeah.
But the thing is that the people in my family were wonderful people, and my two older brothers are they're very well known people, and my sister and I were the closest. But there was an unhealthy dynamic going on, and nobody talked about it. Mm-hmm. And that had to do with my father. Mm-hmm. He was a very good man, but man, he couldn't deal with alcohol. He was never violent, but the tension that was there that couldn't be talked about. So it was like we were one step away from cataclysm.
Yeah, yeah.
But basically, I went on to college, and this is the 60s now.
Yeah.
So, and the college I went to was one of the, prominent ones in the country with the student strikes and all that stuff, and the Vietnam protests, and
What was the school?
Wesleyan University in Connecticut.
Okay, yep.
And we had the Grateful Dead played in the quad. I mean, that's the kind of thing we had. Yeah, and it was like that the whole time I was there. So it was a really crazy time. It was a very painful time for me, but it was the most amazing period of growth for me too, because I was this naive white kid, blonde hair, blue eyed, WASP kid from a small town, Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden I'm in a setting where there's all these sophisticated people, and we had a large black class at that point even, because the university had made a commitment to having a black class equal to the population, and we did.
Wow, that's...
and it was, I think we were the first of the schools in the Northeast that did that. And so there were tensions, but there were also incredible relationships there that I was able to form. And I had occasion to go back at the 25th reunion, and I had my own little program called Race Relations Then and Now. Wow. And I brought back students who were conservative as well as liberal, blacks and whites and Asians, and to talk about how we felt then and what we did then and what we did since then and how we see things now. Wow. And it went very well.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So college was really the most important 4 years of my life at that point, because it opened my mind, and I had professors that really wanted to teach.
Yep.
And I needed to learn.
Yeah.
So.
What was your major? What did?
Religion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which comes up later with AA stuff. Mom, Dad didn't do church, but Mom made us go to Sunday school. She mostly felt we had to learn this culture, that culture of Christianity that was, well, she saw it. She had religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. But so I had to go to Sunday school, and so did Sally, my sister. Yep. But when I got but at a certain point when I was in my mid-teens, the Sunday school teacher said something that just drove me nuts. She talked about a friend of hers who was dying, and she reached up, and the hand of Jesus took her to heaven. And my sister was bullshit, and it made me angry because I wanted to believe it. I really wanted that kind of anchor, but I didn't have it.
Yeah.
But in college, I thought, well, I'm going to deal with this, and so I majored in religion, which is not like studying the rituals or whatever of a particular religion, but it was survey of world religions, a lot of philosophy, archaeology.
Yep.
And I learned a lot. It turned out my advisor was somebody who was a Christian. In fact, he was a minister. And I spent 2.5 years arguing with him. And he put up with me. And
he probably enjoyed that.
He did, I think. And I came out of it having explored enough to decide for myself that I do not have that kind of luxury. I'm not going to have religious faith. It's not in me to have it. Yep. and that I have to live this life like it's my only life, and that I don't have a connection to some higher being, and that's the way it has to be, you know. And I need to find a way to make the life work for me as in that way.
Right.
And so that became my real task was, okay, just make this life the best you can make it.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And
so you answered one of your early life questions by majoring in religion.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, done that. This is not where I need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But it's funny though, it came back later. Well, I should say that, you know, I went to law school and I became a lawyer, and I was hired by a big law firm in Pittsburgh, and I worked there for a couple of years, and I really got a lot out of it. But I started having acute chronic anxiety and just panic attacks and you know, claustrophobia and problems with heights, and it just was driving me crazy. And this particular law firm, my office was on the 57th floor of the U.S. Steel building.
Oh my goodness.
So I had to ride an elevator all the way up.
Oh
you know?
my goodness.
And once up there looking out the window of my office, there was like ants down there.
Oh my God.
And it reached a point where I couldn't take it, so I quit. I started seeing a psychiatrist before I quit. It was no help, but so basically at that point, the anxiety was chronic. It was ongoing, and so when I drank alcohol, it made the anxiety go away. Mm-hmm. You know, so but I didn't stop making money because I'd gotten one of the clients of the firm was a brokerage firm, and I became friends with a vice president there, and so I was doing a lot of day trading, doing a lot of transactions. So I was making more money, you know, at home on the telephone and reading with him than I was as a lawyer, actually. But so I had a house at that point, and I sold it, moved into a little apartment with me and my cat.
Where were you living at this?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, right?
Pittsburgh,
Okay.
yeah. I had set up the great suburban life. You know, I bought a house and everything. It was, but I knew I was panicking inside. This can't last. I need to downsize my life because I'm not working now, and I began drinking more and more, and doing less and less. And I got to a point where, you know, I would get up in the morning. I'd read the Wall Street Journal and Barron's Weekly and the New York Times business section. I'd call my broker. We'd do what we were going to do for the day. By 11 o'clock, I poured my first 12-ounce glass of vodka.
Wow.
You know, 2 hands.
Wow.
And it just accelerated. It got to a point where I was drinking about a half a gallon of vodka a day.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
And I do remember this date. On December 23rd of '79, I was supposed to drive 35 miles north to my parents' house for Christmas, and I couldn't do it. I just called my psychiatrist and said, I don't know what to do. I can't do this. Help.
Yeah.
And so she got me into. It was the mental health floor of the hospital.
Yep.
The psychiatric floor.
Yep.
This hospital, which happened to be on the 9th floor, and the inmates and myself referred to it as Cloud 9. but I was there for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And at a certain point, in the practice of the psychiatrist, someone would come and spend 5 minutes with me a day, basically. But I didn't have any sessions. But they asked me if I wanted to go down to the 7th floor, where the people with alcohol issues were. They were having AA meetings.
Yeah.
I said, "Are you kidding me? No way!" I had no idea what that was, but I didn't want any part of it. From there, it was recommended that I go to rehab. So I went, and for me, rehab meant, okay, they wouldn't let me out of the hospital by myself, but my sister could come and take me shopping for warm-up suits, because that's what rehab's all about, right? I mean, that's all I do, you know, and that worked. I mean, by the way, Sally and I were like this from the time we were little kids, and she's my absolute dearest relative, and she took me to the hospital. And she picked me up from the hospital, and she got me to rehab. Wow. And
did she get you the warm out?
Yeah, we got it. We got it. Of course, you know. So I ended up going to rehab at this place called Gateway, which is suburban Pittsburgh, and I guess it's fairly well known. This guy, Dr. Abraham Twersky, was the guy who started it. It was a 28-day program in those days, and so I went. And it wasn't until it was better than halfway through, and I was in one of the group counseling sessions, and the counselor, they were talking about, well, you don't drink one day at a time. And I said, what? And she said, it's just one day at a time, Bob. And I said, that's bullshit. You're telling me I can't drink for the rest of my life, And, well, just one day at a time, Bob, But the aftercare folks knew that it was a mistake for me to go back to my apartment. I had no other life. It's like a groove in a record, that what am I going to do?
Right.
So one of the people in aftercare knew of this halfway house in Baltimore where I'd never been before in my life. And so he drove me down there in my car. And there's a sitcom in that place. I mean, really, it was hilarious. On the way down, they had the halfway house, the cook for the halfway house, a guy named Peck, who never really stopped drinking,
Oh, dear.
But, as I found out later that when the guy from there was driving me in with my own car, it was a BMW, but, and he said, friggin' Perry Mason's here, and in order to stay at the halfway house, they had to go to AA meetings.
Okay.
And so I started going to the AA meetings at the house, and I met some people, and they kind of took me under their wing, and it was really nice. And I got connected to a recovery community down there, which was a total eye-opener for me.
Yep.
And I got involved in, a home group and all that stuff. And at a certain point, I started to kind of build my life again. I started getting a lot of exercise, running 5 miles a day, and swimming, and and I took a bar review course to sharpen my mind and take the bar exam in Maryland, and I did that, and that was fine. And I was in the three-quarter-way house. They had two houses.
Yep.
When all of a sudden, catastrophe hit. It turned out that the director had relapsed and was merrily embezzling the funds from the programs. And the IRS came swooping in on unpaid payroll taxes. And those of us in the three-quarter-way house were considered, according to the books, we weren't paying. I was paying every week. We were getting paid every week, but it wasn't showing up on the books.
Right. Wow.
So by that time I was a lawyer. So I went to the church that owned the building and said, look, here I have an agreement here for us to take over everything in that building, all the property there, and we will take over the lease, and you sponsor us.
Wow.
And they did.
Wow.
So we started a recovery residence.
Wow.
This guy I knew who was a psychologist, and he and I decided, hey, we can do better than that. So we got the Methodist, it's a Methodist church, we got the Methodist Conference to sponsor us, and they gave us a $10,000 grant to fix up this house, and so we started what we called a residential community.
That's fantastic.
And it was pretty amazing. We ended up sort of breaking the all-white code of the halfway house system there. We were in South Baltimore, and that's
Tough.
an all-white working class area. But we admitted people didn't matter if they were black or white, and we started getting black referrals, and they were being admitted, and over time we mostly had almost half the population of our house were black.
Baltimore is very diverse.
And we went to the mayor, and I went to the mayor and said, look, here we are. And he was going to give us houses all over Baltimore City. It was William Donner Schaefer. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Oh, yes.
And he was a real character, too.
That was his life, being mayor.
Well, then he became governor.
That's right.
But while he was mayor, he assigned his health officer to kind of babysit us. And I worked out an agreement with zoning enforcement that they would not, they would not have an action against us for being illegal where we were, as long as there wasn't a substantive violation, and they give us time to become legal there.
Yeah.
So we had to get a conditional use permit to be there, and so I began working all the community groups, and we did that. It was real political stuff, and we got it. We got we got a conditional use as a drug treatment program. Imagine that, But they all knew who we were, so I'd go to a meeting and say, look, you're going to see this sign that's scary, but it's just us, nothing else.
It was a sober house, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Right. Run by the people who...
Yeah, we we called them a family group, and there was no on-site staff. My partner in this would see people one-on-one who wanted to see, get some help, and outside the place. I would go there every Friday for the weekly family meal and meeting. I set up a bank account that they operated, and basically they wrote the checks. I reconciled the account every month right away, you know. But it went really well for quite a while, but we never had any funding. You know, I still had money from my law stuff, and so that really subsidized us.
Wow.
The house survived on the $50 a week that we charged people to be there. And anyway, so that went on till early 90s. But in the meantime, I had to get a job. You know, the money ran out, and I had credit cards that had balances that needed to be paid, and so I went to the credit card counseling place, and I had to give up my car and take buses everywhere. I had no bank account for 3 years, and paid everything with money orders. You know, I'd walk across town, and what was funny was neat about that. I learned a lot about how cities are organized, and how the bus systems work, and where people can get to on the buses. Because the buses are designed that certain neighborhoods they're not easy to get to on the bus.
That's right.
And I learned about that. But when my time served was up, the great thing was that we had at that time. By then I was working for the National Institute Against Prejudice and Violence, and I started off as assistant director for administration, and within a year I created the position of legal director. So I got involved in all the bias crime law stuff and the controversies over hate speech on college campuses. That was the first go around for that. And
Bob, you know, I just want to pause for a second. Your intellect is amazing. I don't know I mean, what you were able to solve over there in Maryland. And in other parts of your life, early life, was that ever, were you always like the smartest kid in class or the valedictorian? I mean, your intellect is great.
I was always in the advanced classes, you know, that when they track you.
Yeah.
But I didn't really fit entirely with them because I wasn't quite a nerd. I was an asshole. I mean, I was always screwing off and, you know, and getting in trouble, and so I was in those classes, but I was also, you know, a well-known athlete and student council guy. So I kind of cut across all the different lines. So I never really had a rep as a brain type, you know. But you know.
Did you appreciate that in yourself, though, that you were very smart?
I didn't really at the time so much. I mean, getting into Wesleyan was not easy. And I went to BU Law School, and that was pretty good. But here's the thing, though. You know, I ended up being interviewed and hired for this law firm when I was at BU. And so I clerked there after my second year, and after my third year, they hired me. But I always was convinced that they were going to find me out, that I was a fraud, you know. They were going to realize that they made a big mistake hiring me.
Interesting,
you know?
Right.
And it took a while. Where I am now with my self-concept is far beyond where I was then.
But being smart doesn't necessarily mean you have great self-esteem.
Right. Or you think you're smart.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It's like, but you know, I did well in school. I mean, freshman year I was on the dean's list. Sophomore year I was on academic probation because I was starting to smoke pot and do hallucinogens and stuff. Junior year I got back on track, and so I ended up doing well, but one terrible year. Then I went to law school, did well in law school, and the work was fine up to a point, but I didn't really want to do that. So when I got to Baltimore, I still, with some of the money I had left, I signed up for this with a career counseling service called Haldane Associates in D.C. area, one of the Beltway type things. And I had a great counselor there, and I came out of it with the decision that I wasn't going to do any one thing for the rest of my work life. I wanted to have multiple careers, and my goal was to change careers every 5 years. Didn't quite work out, but the Institute, I got a lot of good stuff done there, and in fact I'm still friends with the director who I worked under there.
Wow.
And she was wonderful. I patterned how I work with my own staff at Turning Point with her, how she handled me. I mean, we had like a very prominent social psychologist of Prejudice, you know, and that published academic and researcher and stuff, and we had wonderful program directors, and then there was she, and then there was me, the WASP. You know, and basically everybody thought I was gay, because why else would a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy be working for an organization like this, you know? But I know it was fun. That was funny. But the thing was that we worked a lot with the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, their anti-violence project. They were wonderful people. I really liked them and respected them a lot. But people would just either assume I was gay or say something. I refused to say I wasn't, because I thought it would just be kind of insulting to my gay friends to have to insist that I'm not gay. You know? So I just left it, you know, the way it was. But those years at the Institute, I have to say, they were really fine ones, because I had a chance to, you know, all the stuff about critical race theory. You heard all about that bull crap that they have on TV about it. It's a really serious academic discipline, and the scholars in it are really wonderful and thoughtful people, and I got to know them during those years, and got to participate in a little symposium, wasn't publicized, that the Ford Foundation put on in D.C. And all these prominent scholars from around the country are meeting here. I'm like a nothing, you know. I'm not a scholar, right? I mean, I was writing stuff on the First Amendment, but I wasn't in their league. But it was, for me, it was like a life-changing thing.
Wonderful.
And I ended up being asked to write a monograph on hate speech and the First Amendment on campus.
Really?
And I did, because it was a publication that goes out to all the higher education people in the country, the colleges, universities, and basically based on our research and based on my analysis, I did not think that hate speech codes were either constitutional or desirable. And it's a complicated story, but anyway, when I submitted the draft, she said, "I can't publish this. You know, a little bit of political correctness going on. I can't publish this, or I'll lose my job." And so they paid me a kill fee.
Wow. What year was this?
This was like 93, 94. No, it's 94.
94.
94. Okay. And so in 95, I'd written this draft. I cleaned it up a little bit, and I actually got invited to do 2 workshops at the annual conference of the Southwest Center for Human Relations Studies. And that went really well. I knew a black law professor at Rutgers who did think that hate speech codes could be desirable. And so I asked him to join me in the workshop so that we could disagree. You know, and in a collegial, good faith way. How keeping respect, and that was the main thing we got on the evaluations. Was I didn't think it was possible to have this kind of conversation, you know, and I loved that. That's the kind of thing I really liked. But the institute closed. We were not celebrating diversity in the way that people wanted to at the time, which was let's not deal with the issues that keep us apart. Let's just celebrate being together, you know. And so, I mean, our approach was, look, you know, you can change attitudes of prejudice, and you can get people to come to do things together. And we did research on college campuses. We did research in big business, 3,000 employees. We couldn't give the name of the place because that was part of the funding from the Justice Department. But yeah, I mean, these problems can be dealt with.
So you were right. You were willing to let's talk about the sacred cows here to get to the best solution. And they were worried about the political ramifications of that, so they just wanted to sing Kumbaya.
The thing was that doesn't work, and you know, and as Ira Glasser, who was director of the ACLU at the time, was constantly saying is, look, if you have a hate speech code, who's going to be enforcing that code? Do you really trust them to do it well? You know, it's going to be, you know, the campus police or whoever, you know, the academic, and what reason do you have to trust that kind of thing would be handled properly? And but our approach was to say, look, there are things we can do to improve intergroup relations. We can reduce tensions, and we can be sure people are not left out there, that we can address the harm that's done in a substantive way,
Yep.
and make serious efforts to improve the climate without having a hate speech code.
Interesting.
Because
Yeah.
nothing ever good came of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but that was and I see this going on now with all the political correctness stuff now. It's like, oh, don't we learn anything? You know?
Right.
But
Right. So this was stretching your intellect too. During
yeah,
that time.
yeah, and also, I have this naive little white boy who came out of nowhere, and I didn't know any black people before I went to Baltimore.
Yeah.
I knew some at Wesleyan,
Right.
but what really opened my eyes was being on staff at the Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, on the basis of my work I did work on a lot on cable TV, hate groups using public access. I wrote the first national report on that, and I got invited out to Kansas City for this community group who were dealing with. They wanted to keep public access, but there was this program called Race and Reason, which was put on by a Klan guy, and everybody's in an uproar. And so he invited me to go out there, and I did, and I did a presentation to his group, and when I sat down and I looked around, I realized, wow, I'm the only white person here, and it was a real learning experience, because I'm totally anxious about what are they going to think about me, are they judging me in advance, all the things that you would.
African Americans deal
exactly,
with that every day, right?
Yeah, so I really love Baltimore too, and I love the people there, but it reached a point where there was no more federal money coming in, and the city was really in bad shape. There was no leadership at the city level at the time, and so I just had to. Well, the one other thing I did down in Baltimore was I was on the board of governors of the ACLU of Maryland for 3 years, at a time when they were pioneering driving while black litigation, and that was fun because we're doing that stuff here in Vermont now.
Right.
But that was another thing that was great for me. But then, the Baltimore time had to end, and so I moved to suburban Maryland, not suburban. It was out of the suburbs, but it was a town called Westminster, Maryland, which is near the Pennsylvania border.
Okay.
Nice little town. And it was when I was there that I decided, the issues that were bothering me back in the day don't bother me now. No reason why I can't drink responsibly. So
You revisited.
yeah, so I thought, everybody has a case of wine with dinner, don't they? But so it's, one bad choice led to another, and my partner and I, who did the recovery residence, he was making big bucks with this company doing. He was working with the staff of this site preparation company. They were paying big bucks, and then they were paying me some too. So we moved. They said, I know we can move to be closer. Bad choice. We moved to southwestern Pennsylvania. We bought a gentleman's farm, and two horse barns, about 10-point-something acres, and we had no business being there. But then the drinking got worse, and his drinking got worse, and he alienated the company, and they fired him.
Oh, wow.
And so here we are. Neither of us, we don't have an income, and we're in this house. We have 2 mortgages,
Wow.
and what are we going to do? So for a while, we just kept drinking, and the credit cards are still working, But then at a certain point, I was sitting in this great room, and I just had this realization that this is exactly what happened the first time around. You feel the same. This is exactly what happened.
Right.
You have a problem you have to deal with.
Right.
So I stopped drinking, and I made him stop drinking.
Wow.
And I managed to. We were in foreclosure for the house, and I got a lawyer to do bankruptcy for us. And the way it worked was, this is back then, is that if you declare bankruptcy, a foreclosure is put in abeyance, held in abeyance until that's done.
Okay.
And so when I filed bankruptcy, the foreclosure stopped.
Yep.
But then at a certain point, the bankruptcy picked up again, the foreclosure did rather, but I was able to, at a certain point, to quit claim our interest in the property to this guy who really wanted it, because he had the rest of what was the original plot of land. He wanted what we had, and so I was able to sell it to him, quit claim it, and so he paid off the mortgages, and we got some money, and basically enough money to get out of Dodge.
Wow.
The bankruptcy went fine. I sold everything sellable on eBay, and funny though, I had a collection of first edition science fiction books, and I also had, Mom gave to me as a joke. It was a Star Trek thing, an operating manual for the Star Trek, but it had never been opened.
Oh my!
I got more money for that than I got for any first edition book. I had Heinlein and various writers, But so I had my roommate from college lives in New Jersey, and so he let us move in to his house for a while, and then we got a place of our own. And I worked selling advertising for a shopper's guide. And my partner, by the time he'd had heart surgery, and basically I was trying to find a place to park him, get him an apartment for himself and get him signed up with social services and a doctor and everything. And once I did that, I packed up my cat and I didn't know where to go, but I met this woman online. Our Wesleyan had an alumni listserv. Yeah. And we were always arguing, this is typical Wesleyan stuff. And I met, there's this one woman who, when she said something, this other guy laid into her, and I came back and defended her. I loved her writing. She was a great writer. And then we started emailing off that line, and it turned out that she lives in Vermont. And I said, I don't know where I'm going to go. Got to go back to, I'm sober now, but where do I go? Baltimore, Pittsburgh, where? She said, why don't you come to Vermont?
And that was it?
That was it. And so I packed up my 19-year-old cat.
Wow.
And we moved to East Calais, and she had a spare room. Wow. And that's kind of how I got here.
And you're still in East Calais, right?
Still in East Calais. Well, actually, we started off. We were in South Woodbury.
Okay.
And that's when I got involved with Hardwick Community TV, and because I identify with where I did my laundry, and Hardwick is where I did my laundry. But yes, and that, by the way, it was there when I was on Hardwick Community TV that I got involved with Vermont Access Network, which recently won an award, national award. So I got to know Lauren Glenn and other people that were in Vermont Access, who are the directors of various public access channels around the state.
Wow. When did you move to Vermont? What year was that?
That was 2006. I got here in June of 2006, and by the summer I had this job as the director of Vermont Legal Conservation Voters. Okay. And we didn't do well in the election that fall, but the organization was in serious crisis. It's an LCV type organization where you have a 501c3, a 501c4, and a PAC. So you have three organizations that you're working there. And in most places, the 501c4 is the lead organization. That's the lobbying group or part, And then C3, you do public education and other kinds of charitable qualifying activities. And so we had, but it wasn't working out here. I mean, the 501c3 was just a nothing. The C4, we weren't raising enough money to have two people on salary. So after a while, I just told the board, I said, you should lay me off and promote the other guy here. He loved, doing state house work. He loved lobbying. Yeah. And I said, if you feel when I took the job, I said, do you think would be a good person as director here? And they said, yes, okay. So my goal was to get the organization on its feet and then have him promote into my place. And I mean, by that time I would know my way around, and would be able to get a different job. Yep. But it didn't last long enough. And then the financial crisis and all that stuff, and so they were pissed at me for it, but they laid me off and they promoted him, and what I advised them I laid out a plan for them for the future, and part of the plan involved them approaching VNRC, Vermont Natural Resources Council, and to merge with them.
Yeah.
And then have the 501c3 be the dominant organization, and the C4, be the still the lobbying arm, but it's not the dominant organization.
Right, right.
And they did.
They did that,
And they're doing it now. They're doing it, and it's working very well.
Beautiful.
They're able to do the environmental lobbying and do the scorecard every term, and yet they have this bigger organization. So it worked out.
Yeah, yeah.
But meanwhile, I had to get a job.
Exactly.
My unemployment was running out. There was this thing in the paper about this turning point, something or other. I said, well, I think I could do this. I'm in recovery. I was never a AA guy, really. I mean, looking back, I realized that I learned how to live sober by being around those people, but not by going to meetings so much, but being part of this community of people.
Right.
And that's what I really took out of it was, if you have a community of people who are doing something similar, the same thing, you can change your life that way, and you have a support system.
A huge support system.
And so, so I got that job, and that's a story, but I won't tell that. But the only other person there was this young woman who was just coming off subsidized employment from Reach Up, and I came in. So our total budget was $55,000. So we both had to live with that.
And this is the turning point of Central Vermont.
That's right, Turning Point Center, Central Vermont, located on North Main Street, in the heart of the flood zone, as it turns out, in Barre. And there was just the two of us for a long time. And I'm still in touch with her today. I have a great deal of affection for her. She's kind of like a niece for me. Although people thought of us as an old married couple because of the way we interacted, we got to know each other. And but she was not in recovery herself, and did not. I sent her to Recovery Coach Academy, and I felt she certainly qualified by virtue of family addiction. But she didn't feel comfortable with that. But she still was terrific in how she related to people, and I still see her now and then.
Oh, that's great.
But it.
Yeah. So now this turning point.
Yeah.
This tiny
Now
little.
I'm in the love of my life now, because my years there are the best years of my life.
Right. And talk about that a little bit. You took it from nothing, basically.
Yeah. It was the 6 months previous to me joining the staff there. That was in November of 2010. They came this close to losing the grants. The previous director had basically made it an extension of the homeless shelter that's nearby.
Oh.
And the Vermont Recovery Network, at that point, there were only 9 recovery centers at that point, and they had a stakeholders meeting, and they recommended that we move the recovery center to Montpelier, where there's a strong recovery community in AA. And they didn't. This small group of women decided, we'll make it work here, and so they cleaned the place up. Took 6 months, and then reopened quietly. And I got, immediately I got involved with the VRN stuff, the Recovery Network stuff, and they told me that they thought it was better to move to Montpelier, and I said no. I said there's a need here in Barre. If we can't make it here, we can't make it there either. We have to do that here.
Right.
And it is the right place. I'd love to have a satellite in Montpelier, but
that could very well happen.
it could, but we don't have the money for it now. And and I've been looking to do one. It's a whole other story. But it took me 2 years to convince other programs in the city that it was safe for women to come there, because it had been a dump. And there was no recovery really going on there. And in fact, when I got in there, they had a bunch of computers donated, and they were on a network. They had bought a whole hard drive to hold nothing but a multiplayer, game.
Oh my goodness.
And that's all they were doing.
It is.
And so when I got there, I took that hard drive out. And said, no, we're not doing that anymore. But for a long time, we had people coming from the shelter, which is just a few blocks away, would come down, especially when it was cold out. And the thing is that you sympathize with it, but it's not what we do.
Right.
And there's nothing can deaden the environment in a recovery house more than people who were there who were not interested in recovery.
That's right.
And So I had to develop ways of being nice about it, but saying, no, I'm sorry, you can't come in here.
Yep. Yep.
So I did form a relationship with the shelter, though, and we had, and explained to them how we work and what we're about and so forth to make it so they could decide who they might suggest come down there who was interested in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of worked.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2015, the hospital, I never met anybody at the hospital until 2015.
Okay.
They didn't show up anywhere, right?
Okay.
They were on the Hill.
Yep.
And in 2015, I got a call from Dr. Javed Mashkuri at CVMC. He was the coordinator for their SBIRT program. SBIRT stands for Screening, Brief Intervention, Referral to Treatment.
Okay.
It's an evidence-based training program for medical professionals to identify people with substance use disorders, talk to them a little bit, ask some questions, and get them to open up to the possibility of getting help.
Mm-hmm.
And what they realized was they didn't know where to send people. They didn't know anything about the community.
Okay.
So the two doctors, Dr. Mashkuri and Dr. Mark Datman, the dynamic duo, they set about to change that by establishing a coalition. And they got Barbara Smaglia, the deputy commissioner of the health department at that point.
Yep.
And she came and she co-signed the email inviting people, and they got all the people to come. But from me though, Mashkuri came to me and I gave them the names and addresses of all the programs in town, and so they were all invited. And the beauty of that was though that they included peer recovery from the very beginning in everything they did. And so we have been central to everything that coalition does from the beginning. And that's probably been the greatest thing for me. It was 3 years before we had the emergency department program. And as you remember, that's how we became friends, really, was because we both had the pilot program for that plus Bennington. Yep. And we had to fight for our grants after that first year. And Mashkuri came to me from a grant meeting with the director and said, oh, of course you're getting your grant, Bob. So between your politicking and ours, we kept them.
Yes.
And that's been vital because that's huge.
Formalized the link between the center and the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the hospital loves it, and it's been the key program for us, really. I mean, we're doing more now, but and it's now grown out. The ED program itself because we had this great coalition started to begin with, starting from 2015. In 2018, that's when SAMHSA came to Vermont and wanted Vermont to pilot a treatment on demand program.
SAMHSA being the Substance Abuse,
Substance Abuse
Mental Health Services Administration,
right?
Federal,
the source of all the federal money for mental health. Thanks for mentioning that. And they came to Vermont, and Vermont came to us because they knew about our coalition that included peer recovery and was really strong. And so we got that. We got that pilot project, and that's where RAM came from, the Rapid Access to Medication.
Okay.
And that ended up going all around the state too. So we started our ED program, as you did. We also had RAM, and there was some funding for that to develop that among all our partners in the community. And that's been huge. Then after RAM, and that really brought everybody together. I mean, I can't tell you how amazingly tight our whole coalition is. I mean, the people, there's no agendas, there's no silos, it's all working together. And
so this central Vermont area went from really not having much going on for people who want recovery from alcohol or substance use disorders to having linking and connecting and a vibrant network being developed down there.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, Mashkuri was the guy on the ground who was forging connections between clinical and peer programs for doing a variety of things. And Mark Detman was the guy he was brilliant, a brilliant doctor, and who saw that stigma was a huge problem in the medical sector that had to be dealt with. And he was the guy who, he had the foresight to apply for grants that we got, a pilot project grant and then a implementation grant. That was 4 years worth of HRSA money right there. And we had a huge part of that. And I was able to hire 2 people and just deploy them as I saw fit. And Detman was amazing.
Wow.
And he was the guy who, at some point, I think around 2018 or 19, it was before it was after my cancer surgery, but before the pandemic.
Yep.
We were standing in the back of one of the CEOs of the hospital would have these annual forums, community forums. We were standing in the back, and he leaned over and said, "Bob, you have to get out of that building you're in. It's not right for you."
Yeah.
Right? And that's what started it for me, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about
Yeah.
where that's come.
Well, I'm fuzzy on the years now. It's been a while, but
It's okay.
when they announced, when like Leahy and Bernie and at that point Welch was the rep.
Yep.
They started doing earmarks again. We're going to be we invite community groups to submit applications and we'll fund projects.
Yep.
And I submitted, I knew Diane Derby was one of Leahy's primary community people in, in Vermont. And she had her own interest in recovery centers. And I'm sure you met her there.
Yes.
And I got to know her, and she was right nearby. And so I applied to Leahy for a $750,000 earmark, and I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one board member that I'm still talking with, had been the director of the Barre Housing Authority for a long time, and so he knew about other kinds of state grants and stuff. And so working with him, we got a Vermont Community Development Grant, which you can't apply for directly, but the municipality has to apply on your behalf. So Barre City applied on our behalf. I mean, we did the application, but they sponsored us, and so we got that. That was $300,000. We got there. We got $750, and now we're getting going here, right? And somehow,
Yes.
I ended up over a period of time. I raised a total of like $3.9 million.
$3.9 million.
So,
wow.
so, but that's the thing. The funny thing is that that wasn't enough in the end. But we had part of that. What took so long for us was that we got $1 million grant from USDA Rural Development, and we got Becca Ballant got us a $400,000 earmark. That's the last one we got for a HUD grant.
Mm-hmm.
But
And this is all to rehab an existing building in Barre.
Yeah.
And turn that into a new recovery center.
yeah, this building is actually historically significant. It's not on the registry, and it's just outside the historic district. But it's what's called a classic Greek revival cottage style. Mm-hmm. And it's very plain, but it's beautiful. And we took out an option on that building. The guy was underwater in his mortgage, and it's right beside the Tilden House in Barre City.
Okay.
But anyway, so what I put together with the first thing we found was we got an architect, right? And so I met with the architect at the Cornerstone Restaurant in Barre, and over 2 hours, he came away, and what he came up with was a design to implement what I told him. It was almost perfect to start with. But the idea is to restore that building with a historic preservation consultant, to restore that building to its significant origins.
Yep.
And bring it back as a beautiful building.
Yep.
And then put an addition on the back that would have the bulk of the space.
Okay.
And so the original plan was, and we did that, and we got the state historic, they call SHPO, the State Historic Preservation folks, came in, and we worked with them, and we had a consultant, and we worked it out and agreed to what we could and could not do in the building. They let us take down the L and put up an addition in a similar style, because basically, if we didn't do something with that building, it was going to be lost.
Right. Right.
And so that was really, I loved doing that, and I loved the way we designed the project, and but the problem is that we only had of all that $3.9 million, a little less than $350,000 was actually in hand as cash.
Okay.
And the rest of it is grants. And as you well know from when you were at VRN, getting awarded a grant ain't the same thing as getting the money.
That's right.
Because, and I think it's a good thing, but when you get an earmark or any federal grant, it has to be connected to a specific program of that agency. And you have to apply for it in the same way that anybody else does.
That's right.
Now the money's there for you. It's not competitive, but you have to meet all their criteria.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have a proper budget. You have to do all your environmental site assessments, your historical preservation, all the things that federal grants require you to have.
That's right.
And we did it all in the end.
Wow.
But,
Wow.
but the environmental site assessment turned out to be a problem because, I mean, the Central Vermont Community, well, whatever agency it was, not Community Development, Regional Planning Commission. The Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission had a brownfield committee, and they voted to subsidize our Phase 2 environmental site assessment, which turned out to be long and costly, and they ended up paying out close to $150,000 for us.
Wow. Wow.
But they did. And once that was done, we had to come up with a corrective action plan to mitigate some toxic soils and other possible, toxins in the building. And the corrective action plan, great, now we have that, but that's going to cost $566,000.
Oh my God.
So we applied to the governor's brownfield committee, and they gave us the money for it. We didn't have to put a penny towards it.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was amazing. There
Wow.
was a geologist with Stone Environmental, and I collaborated on the proposal,
Yep.
and we got it.
Wow.
So meanwhile, it's not until, well, in the meantime, I developed a medical issue about 13 or 14 months ago. And my original plan was, okay, we're finally going to be able to get off the ground for our project, and we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost yet, and we haven't put out a bid for bid yet, but I've decided that I needed to retire by the end of June of this year. That's the goal. That's what I told the board I was going to do. And in the meantime, I had been bringing along this young woman who is just terrific. Her name is Rosemary,
Yes.
and she's absolutely wonderful. And I promoted her like 3 times, and each time she grabbed hold of that job and she
Took it.
She did it.
Ran with it.
Yeah, she ran with it.
Yep.
She's very smart, and
Yep.
she's very committed, very dedicated,
Yep.
and she has the right kind of ambition, which is an ambition to be successful coupled with a generous heart.
Mm-hmm. The winning combination
Yeah.
in the recovery community.
Yeah, so I was, and the only question was I convinced the board that she was the right person to succeed me, and so then we spent time, and I had her come to board meetings and do presentations every month, and
Yep.
and the idea was that we would have a smooth transition from me to her. But my health was going downhill too fast, and reached a point where I was having trouble getting invoices submitted for payment, and so we got a little behind there, and the board got upset, and but I hung in there, and I said, okay, I'll retire instead of June 30th, I'll retire March 5th,
Okay.
and between now and then I'll get this much done and
Yep.
go from there. And so I did that, and I said I'd still like to work part-time to support Rosemary and also to work on the project.
Yeah.
But when it came down time to it, the board basically decided they just wanted to end it, and they basically there was no way for me to end up participating anyway.
Right. Right.
And it was tough, and it was tough for Rosemary. But Rosemary, she has a healthy kind of anxiety about new jobs, in that she doesn't know it yet, but she has the confidence to jump in and do it.
Right.
And so I've worked with her over the months since then, and I haven't even heard from her in weeks now. She's doing great. She's really grabbed hold of it. I'm sure that there'll be a few things that will work out together, that she'll get some help.
Absolutely.
But what I did was I had this high-end Apple computer that I told the board I would donate to Turning Point, and it has all the files going back to 2010 on it.
Wow.
Everything.
Wow.
Including emails.
Wow.
Every email sent or received
Oh my goodness.
on the Turning Point account. So
I want to ask you though. You had said earlier that about 2010 to when you left in March was the best time of your life.
Yeah.
What about the time really struck home for you?
I'm glad you asked that. There was a point early on. I started going to the Sunday morning AA meeting at Turning Point, even though I wasn't really a 12-step guy, really. But and I had really kind of had an arrogant feeling about it the first time around, you know, this God stuff and whatnot. And that's, I think, what led to my relapse was that I hadn't really accepted I had a disease.
Yep.
But I was sitting in that meeting one day, and I could still see myself sitting there. I looked around the room, and there's like 25 or 30 people in the room, and I realized that, you know, I don't have to explain anything to anybody here. I'm accepted for who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
And what a feeling that was, you know? It's it was just amazing, and that carried over to me wanting to kind of support other people getting there, you know, and I got so much satisfaction out of working with people. I mean, I got some of that in Baltimore with the recovery residents we had there, and that was about 9 years worth. But this was different, and I had a new appreciation for, I would say, a spiritual side of life that is not necessarily religious. It doesn't involve, you know, a book or a God or anything, but just, you know, a connection to the universe, so to speak, or the world, that I felt that I had never felt before. And I wanted to create that feeling in Turning Point. I wanted people to feel that when they came in, that they would feel welcome, they would feel at home, and they wouldn't feel, you know, ill at ease.
You didn't have to prove anything to anybody.
And if you relapse, the first thing you need to know is to come back, because that's what we want to know. We want you to come back, because we respect you, and we don't, you know, it's a disease, so there's no moralism here. You know, the only bad thing is if you don't come back. And so that's how I did for some years. But then it reached a point where I could no longer be the guy doing the programs. You know, I was a certified recovery coach and all this stuff, and but I can't do that. I have too much to do. In fact,
you're the administrator.
I don't know if I said this when you were president at one of the VRN meetings, but I said, you know, if we're successful with these things, we're going to turn out to be nothing more than nonprofit managers. You know, and that's really kind of what was happening. And at first, you know, it bothered me, but then, not that many years ago, I'd say probably more like around 2020 or so, when we got better at hiring people and we had more really higher level stuff for them to do, and we had people really engaging in recovery services, and I began to really care about the people we were hiring, and I began to say, well, you know what, okay, I'm not just a bureaucrat here. My job is to support them.
Keep it all going.
Yeah, support them. They need to be happy and healthy, and have any training they want. They need to be able to do, you know, and that's kind of, and when I left in March, the staff gave me a beautifully framed picture of all of us that were the final staff for my time there. And I have that, and I'd look at that.
I think I've seen that picture. It's a beautiful.
It's and you know, and there's some of them that are people that I knew when they were really struggling. One in particular who I knew her way back. She was really struggling. In fact, she had a serious car accident, and she still just left her with issues with the leg, but she got into treatment court, and we had a strong program at treatment court, and so I worked with her a lot, and she did the different programs we have, and she invited me to her graduation from treatment court, and I went, and it was wonderful, and but then she relapsed, and she, you know, just kind of fell off again, and got into some problems, and I hadn't seen her for a while. But then a couple of years ago, we were hiring, and in walks this beautiful young woman with a smile on her face. It's her.
It's her. Wow. Wow.
And she has turned out to be, I don't know, one of the very best people we've ever had.
Wow.
And she's part of Rosemary's leadership team. And she's supervising people, and she's doing great stuff. And there's more like her. And we have another coach named Mallory, who when Hillary was our program manager for the hospital program, she met Mallory there, and she kind of said, "Okay, I can take it from here." And then 6 months later, got back in touch and said, I need some help here, because she hadn't realized, but she was struggling. But she then got back on track, and she came back not too long ago and applied for a job, and she's a terrific hospital recovery coach now.
Fantastic.
You know,
Fantastic.
and that's what I love to see.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
but so it's I've thought for the longest time that new project was my legacy, right? And so I really, what does it mean now that I'm not part of it? When the actual doing of it. And I've had a few months to think about it now and work it through, and I now realize that's really not my legacy.
Right.
I mean, my legacy is the team that's there,
Yes.
and the relationships they have in the community.
Yes.
That's my legacy. If I have a legacy,
Yes.
and I keep I've told Rosemary more than once that I will shamelessly bask in the glow of your accomplishments.
There you go. Absolutely. Because think about it, when you started, a budget of $55,000 and no connection to anything at
That's
that
right,
point.
yeah.
And today it's all kinds of connections and vibrant, and
I think the budget for next year is close to $800,000.
there you go.
You know, and by the way, we have, and this is wonderful. When I started promoting Rosemary to do roles, her natural inclination was to want to, to reach out to the Family Center of Washington County and get involved with women's issues and family issues and youth, and so that's where we're heading. And part of my reason for wanting her to have my job is that that's the direction we need to go in.
Yep.
And our coalition got a 5-year SAMHSA grant with a $1.87 million or something, and so we have a major part of that.
Wow.
You know, and we're going to end up getting special training for working with youth.
Beautiful.
And we'll be working with families, and Rosemary's doing that, and she's got people
great.
on staff who are supporting that, and so it's I feel like I've done what I can.
Yeah, you really put it out there, Bob.
So anyway,
we're getting close to the end of the interview, but is there anything any quote or thoughts about your life that you'd like to share with the audience that helped you guide yourself to point north?
Well, I will say that I reached a point of self-examination early in my second recovery, where I began to think I had to be more intentional about the kind of life I'm living and the relationships I have and ones I honor, and my first kind of crude idea was, okay, when a big decision comes up and you have a choice to make, imagine you're on your deathbed so many years down the road looking back. Which choice will you be happy with? You know, which do you think is the right choice? In other words, to get distance from the immediacy of the moment,
Right.
To see what this means.
Right. Right.
And so that was it for starters. And more kind of, I guess, jokingly, but seriously also, I say that I tried very hard to become the person that I want to believe I am. You know? So that carries with it the kind of the humility of,
Yes. You're tough on yourself.
but it's and throughout it, my family has always been supportive of me. But I have to say that my sister Sally, I don't want to mention this. Sally and we ran away from home together when we were little kids twice, and later we did horseback riding together, and then when I went to law school, she was just coming out of college. She moved to Boston to be with me, and so we've always, and through my addiction and my recovery, whenever I did something good or something I was proud of, she's the first person I told.
There. Wow.
And
Nice.
the there was the week before Recovery Day when I was told I was going to get the Lifetime Achievement Award, and I said I'll call Sally on the weekend, but the weekend came and she died overnight, Friday to Saturday. We have a family inherited disease called HHT. It's where veins and arteries come together. There's a defect. And if it's in the wrong place, it can be fatal. And Sally's was in her heart.
Wow. I'm
And
sorry.
it's like, but, and I lost my younger brother to that same disease.
Wow.
And both my older brothers have it.
Wow.
and I don't.
My goodness.
So it's hereditary hemorrhagic something or other, but it's a heritable disease, but it's like 50-50, and we ended up 4 out of 5 of us got it.
Wow.
And my brother Bill and I were coming out of I went back we had a celebration of life for my mom when she died at 98. We were coming on, and I said, we were talking about HST, and I said, Bill, I said, of the 2 bad things we could have inherited from Dad, I think I was the lucky one to inherit the alcoholism.
Wow.
But they're both doing fine. Both my older brothers are doing okay.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But so.
Well, all right. Well, thank you for being a guest on the show.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And it's an incredible life you've led.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's not over yet.
No, it's not.
Thanks, Gary.